Adventure is a requisite part of each of our lives, except for those who can be inspired within four walls without stepping outside. But for most, the journey of seeking what is past their front door is a fundamental desire. Paulo Coelho once wrote, "The danger of adventure is worth 1,000 days of ease and comfort," so the question remains if the danger is really worth it. Jess Tinsley is a regular 24-year-old who loves to go on hikes and adventures. On a Sunday evening of August 2019, Jess went on a hike in the woods along with some friends. The turn of events that followed next was something the trio could not have imagined even in their wildest dreams. Jess Tinsley, a resident of Durham, England, is a 24-year-old mom to a beautiful daughter named Emmy. Her partner, Kieran, shares an amazing relationship with her daughter. Jess had Emmy quite young and raised her on her own until Kieran came into their lives. She could not have asked for a more perfect man. He cares for them immensely, and Emmy has adored him since day one. Jess loved her little family more than anything in the world. However, it wasn't always the case. Before Emmy was born, Jess had a completely different life. She used to go on endless adventures. She always had the travel bug and loved to go on hikes and camping trips. Her favorite hikes were trails in the woods that climbed up the hills. A woman's priorities change when she becomes a mother, and Jess was no different. After Emmy came into her life, Jess couldn't go on carefree trips like that anymore. She was raising her daughter alone, and going on hikes or climbs was the last thing on her mind. Things changed for better when Jess met Kieran. He was the support she had been longing for all this while. It was as if he came into the picture and everything fell into the right place. He took care of things she would worry about and never complain. And once Emmy grew up a bit, Kieran could take Jess on little hikes again. It was a cloudy Sunday evening. Jess was in her front yard sipping some tea. She had just finished up her chores and was waiting for Kieran to come home. They had planned an evening stroll along with their friend Dan. The weather was a bit too cloudy for her taste, but she was excited. Jess's train of thought came to a halt as she heard Kieran's car pull up in the driveway. Jess had already called the babysitter for Emmy, who was already kind of sleepy, so the sitter will have an easy job tonight. She made her way to the car and sat in the front seat. Dan was already chilling in the back. They were all quite excited as they haven't done this in a while. The location they chose for their evening stroll was the Hamsterley Forest, which lay about 15 miles from their home in Newton Aycliffe. It covers more than 2,000 miles, which makes it the largest forest in Durham. It's also chosen as Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, which represents those preserved areas that are smaller than national parks, but equally important. The trio had never been to Hamsterley Forest before, but they were not anxious because the forest had many trails for cycling, horse riding, and hiking to make exploring accessible for visitors. After speculating for some time, the group of friends settled on marking a 5-mile circle, which would bring them back to where they started the hike. The trio began their stroll with a burst of energy. The fall leaves carpeted the trail, their shoes crushing them with each step. The sun was peeking from behind the clouds, and the chilly breeze made Jess relieved that she brought her sweater. The trail was beautiful, no doubt. Jess was already ready to plan another stroll here. Time wore off as they wandered through the forest. Eventually, when the sun looked like it is beginning to set, the group realized they have been walking continuously and wandered off much further than they intended to. Kieran recommended they pick up their pace if they want to reach back before the sun goes down. It had now been roughly 2 hours since they started their walk, and it was starting to bother them how much time it is taking to finish it. Plus, their remote location in the woods meant there is no cell reception to check the distance. They were just walking endlessly on this trail and had no idea where they are or where they are headed. The evening was now wearing off and darkness was descending around them. The speckled shade of the trees seemed so inviting all those moments ago. Now the air was just filled with an eerie silence, except for the echoing sound of their feet on the damp ground. Feeling tired was not an option, they had to keep going. Another hour into the trail, the trio luckily stumbled upon a map of the area. It was completely dark now and the weather was getting worse. Dan began to read the map to determine where they were and how much further they need to go, but to his dismay, what he saw on the map was something else altogether. The trio had fallen off the trail and wandered off to a path that was 12 miles long. To top that, they didn't know where on the path they were at the moment. Jess was ready to have a mental breakdown right there. How on earth will they ask someone to get them if they didn't know where they were? Kieran knew they have to come up with a plan quickly as it is already dark here. They had to call for help, but there is no way they would get cell reception in these dense woods. So the most important thing to do right away was to find a clearing of some kind where they could hope to get some network on their phones. After what seemed like hours of searching, the trio managed to locate a clearing in the woods. The three of them immediately reached for their phones and were relieved to see that they managed to get a network here. Now the question was how to tell the emergency services where they were. There was no way to locate them in this empty field. They didn't plan on being stranded there all night, so it was decided they were going to call first, then figure it out as they talk about how they could locate them. Jess took her phone and dialed 999, the emergency helpline number. The operator picked up on the second ring asking what their emergency was. Jess gave a nervous glance to the boys, afraid to speak up. Kyron gave a confident nod to Jess, encouraging her to speak. Jess started explaining everything to the operator. "Hi, we're stranded in the woods. We were on a hike but somehow lost our way, and now we don't know where we are or where to go. The weather is getting really bad. I think it might rain, and it's so dark. Please help." The operator on the call understood there is no way for Jess to tell her where she is at the moment and to send rescue services they need their exact location. So she asked Jess if she has cell reception on any other phone apart from hers so that she can follow instructions while staying connected on call. Jess took her boyfriend's phone and was ready to follow the operator's instructions, but what the operator said next took Jess by surprise. The operator asked her to download an app. It took Jess a moment to realize this was not some stupid joke and the operator was dead serious. She was supposed to download an app on her phone. Dan and Kieran were really confused as to what was happening. Jess was busy downloading some app on Kieran's phone as per the operator's instruction. Jess suddenly speaks into the phone, kicked, converged, soccer. Dan and Kieran had their brows furrowed in confusion. What is Jess talking about? Why is she talking in codes? What is happening? So now the rescue squad is on their way to our location, Jess finished explaining. The boys could not believe their ears. None of them was aware that an app such as this one existed, and only they knew how thankful they were today for its existence. The trio began to see hope again, the hope of sleeping in their beds tonight, and for Jess and Kieran, the hope to see Emmy. It had been almost an hour since they spoke with the operator, who informed them that the rescue squad is on its way. But still there was no sign. Their worst fear also came true. It had started to rain heavily. So now they were cold, tired, and hungry, struggling to find shade underneath the trees. Jess was on the verge of crying her heart out, but she knew she has to be strong. Help is coming. Another half an hour had passed. The three of them were utterly drenched by now. Jess was huddled up between Dan and Kieran when she heard a vehicle coming their way. She thought she is dreaming when she spotted a headlight. Is this happening? Have they been found? Teesdale and Weardale search and mountain rescue team members were able to locate the trio extremely precisely. They were instructed to not move unless and until the team reaches them. The rescue squad was able to use the What 3 Words code against their system and send a text to Kieran's phone, which ultimately helped them in mapping the directions to their location. The trio was thrilled to see the vehicles rushing in to get them. The three of them jumped to their feet and ran outside into the clearing. Jess mumbled every prayer to every god she possibly could. She could not believe they get to go home. Emmy's little face came to her mind and she finally let herself shed a tear, but it was out of happiness. The leader of the rescue squad explained how they were anxious because of the weather, but thankfully they managed to find them in time. We were really happy with the result, which was very effective, and everyone was well, albeit a bit cold. They were lucky to have had a phone signal, as it's normally really bad in the forest. So how does this app, which saved the hikers' lives, work so precisely? The software for the app was developed by Chris Sheldrick. The inspiration behind this idea came from his rural upbringing in the English countryside. It all started with the problem of a postcode. The postcode of an area is used to denote a specific number to that area to sort out mails and deliveries. As a kid, Chris recalled receiving mails meant for other people or standing on the road to flag down delivery trucks. Because the issue behind postcodes is that it did not point to a particular house, it covered a large area with numerous houses. Sheldrick grew up to work in the music industry for almost a decade. However, the same problem persisted even then. He faced problems when bands needed to meet at a particular venue for concerts, or when musicians and singers will find themselves on the other part of the town instead of the correct location. This became a substantive reason behind Sheldrick's frustration. According to the What 3 Words website, Sheldrick had some pretty bad days, like in Italy, when the driver unloaded all the band equipment an hour north of Rome instead of an hour south of Rome. and a slightly worse day when the keyboard player called him and said, "Chris, don't panic, but we may have sound checked at the wrong wedding." Sheldrick came up with the idea of using longitude and latitude to map out the exact location. But as you can guess, it didn't work at all. It's difficult to remember numbers as it is, so the more the digits in a number, the harder it is to recall. While the idea might be complicated, it wasn't necessarily a bad one. So Sheldrick began to think of ideas that would simplify this method. In the year 2013, Sheldrick began to refine his idea with the help of a former pupil who was a maths whiz. They began to think about how to compress this 16-digit number of longitude or latitude and make it more user-friendly. They wanted to create a system that is as precise as a GPS, but much more intuitive. After brainstorming and discarding endless ideas, the idea for what 3 words was subsequently formulated at the back of an envelope. Sheldrick covered the map of the world with a grid consisting of 57 trillion squares, each about 3 meters in size. Then each of these squares was granted a thread of 3 random words, providing each square with its unique identity. It took them approximately 40,000 words and their different combinations to cover all the squares on the grid of the world. A few examples of these combinations are sulk, held, raves, which indicates a location inside the White House. The biggest achievement of this app is its accuracy. For instance, if you want to navigate within the White House, you will be able to do that with this app. Takes, ritual, skins. Takes you to the kitchen, whereas pump, reveal, firmly, will take you to the library. In fact, it is so precise that out of the 57 trillion squares, 6 of them are in the White House library alone, so it can point out a particular section within the library. What 3 words is not the universal navigation tool yet, however, it is slowly but surely catching up. In Mongolia, the app is used by postal services for executing deliveries. Also, Lonely Planet utilizes this app to acknowledge geographical attractions. Plus, Mercedes-Benz has combined this app with its car navigation system. The What 3 Words company now has over 100 employees at its headquarters in London, or Filled Count Soap, which points to the front door of their office. The employees are constantly working hard to improve and develop this system even further. Their goal is to become the ultimate mode of communication between people for pointing out locations. The emergency services crew believes that What 3 Words is the perfect tool for making their job more effective. The app will eliminate the uncertainty of where they need to go, pointing them to the precise location, exactly like in Jess and her friend's case. There are approximately 35 UK emergency services that are already signed up with the app. Another thing What 3 Words has proved to be helpful in is fighting wildfires. Instead of starting from one point outside the forest and then trying to get directed from there, the fighters now know the exact position and plan out their route themselves in the fastest and most effective way. The best part is this app does not need cell service to function. Sheldrick described this feature as particularly helpful for people who are stranded somewhere with no reception. But the question is, how will a person communicate his location to the emergency services if they don't have reception? Sheldrick had an answer for that. He explained, "Say there was a group of hikers up on the mountains and one of them gets injured. They don't have a signal to make a call, but they can find out exactly where they are. They will know their unique set of 3 words. One of them can then run out to get help and bring them back to their injured friend's precise location." One of the more extreme cases in which this app helped someone was when a girl, who was held hostage by her kidnapper, managed to send her unique 3 words to the police and ask for help. The officers were able to reach the location much faster now that they had the unique 3 words, compared with when they would have to track her down on her own, which was a time-taking process. The amazing thing is Sheldrick created this app with his frustration about postcodes and addresses. He had no idea it would end up saving lives. In recent times, the app has successfully saved many people, a woman with a broken car in the middle of nowhere, a man who fell down a riverbank, and many more. This app helped the world with more than just precise directions, for sure. Jess only has endless appreciation for the app and its creator. She says she will never forget those 3 words that saved her life. She can't thank the app creators and the mountain rescue team enough. They made it possible for her to return to her daughter, and that means more to her than anything else in this world. The other hikers, Kieran and Dan, were extremely grateful to the app developer team and rescue squad as well. They find themselves to be one of the lucky ones who were able to escape such an unfortunate situation. The experience has put off Jess from making any further plans at the Hamsterley Forest for now, but maybe one day she will gather the courage again and complete that forest trail.